I sometimes hear 4 of them. You can see where I'm the circle and Music Man is marked, and then those other X's are where I hear either knocks coming from, or the X closest to me is where it seems that the one is throwing pine cones from behind me from near the edge of that field. So I don't know what's going on in the rest of the ravine, just within earshot around me, and then within earshot of my recorder when I leave. I've wondered why they are so tenacious in staying around here, especially when they know that somebody's onto them. I seem to be the only one that knows they are here. I never see hide nor hair of any other human being in the ravine. So you'd think they'd either dispatch me or, more likely, just relocate. They have some allegiance to this ravine. Of course, the first thing you think of is a burial ground for their ancestors, but there's no way to know that at this point. I can tell you that 7 years ago, when I first started exploring in here, I came upon a wheel formation down near the bottom where there's a little stream, and not too far from where I interact with them today. You can see it's very well put together, very symmetrical, and one of the spokes of this wheel is made up of a still rooted tree drawn into the circle from, what is that, 20, 30 feet away? So this formation is pretty rare to find and may signify, again, some extra significance to this spot. So on September 15th, when I left and went home, I put the recorder where you see that red dot. And this area that I've shaded in is where I hear them knocking. I'm not sure that this is exactly the same range that the recorder can hear, but it's probably not that different. I left at 7:45, and what you're going to hear is what the recorder captured for the rest of that morning and in the afternoon until my return to retrieve the recorder at about 4:45. The first part of the morning after I leave is just insanely active. It's like being inside a popcorn machine or something. You're going to hear excerpts of what is on the audio file. There's other activity too, but I'm just playing the highlights for you. Listen carefully for hand clapping and occasional soft grunts or breaths. Listen also for foreground, background percussion. We can tell there are at least, at times you can tell that there are at least 2 making noise. And are they communicating back and forth using some sort of code, or is this just more like parallel play? Now from about 10:30, the activity trails off significantly, and no longer are you going to hear just highlights. You're going to hear just about everything that I feel I can associate with them. The signals come much fewer and farther between, and we can guess that they're resting, taking naps. Do you think that they would leave and do other things, risk traveling in the daylight, and then go back to the same spot and resume making noise? I think that given that they are active at night, it would make sense that they would rest during the day and not move around when people are out and able to see. I think it's a fair assumption that they're resting in place and occasionally rousing and making a little noise in order to let one another in the group know that everything's okay. It's sort of like, still here, still okay. I bet that they need to sleep spread out to make it almost impossible for them to be snuck up on or flanked or surrounded, because this ravine is littered with just an almost infinite amount of little sticks. Every time I walk in, I'm constantly snapping them loudly. Those sticks are like 10,000 tripwires. So I think that either all in the group would immediately know when a human was approaching, or at least one of them would and could easily signal the others. I think that's much safer than sleeping or resting or hanging out or communing or chatting, in a small knot somewhere. They're spread strategically. And when it comes to me being there, of course, I'm always surrounded. They have me right where they want me. If I were to make any move toward them, they could easily scatter. I have no strategic leverage. What was that? Could that have been one of them waking up from a nap, shaking awake from a nap? I mean, what else is going to be? A sheepdog? A bear? But if you listen very carefully, and I'll play it one more time, you can hear very subtle knocks associated with it, and then 4 minutes later, much more obvious knocks. I think it was actually him shaking. I think that's so wonderful. I finally left the recorder long enough to figure out whether they spend all day here.